Welcome to episode 5 now of the BMW 4 Series long-term report, and time really does fly because this is going to be the penultimate report of the entire series, because it's not long until the 4 Series goes back, which is a shame because, well, as I'm sure you can tell over the last few episodes, I've really enjoyed it. But today is an important one because I'm not actually going to drive the 420i, because you know all about that pretty much by now, and if you don't, then you're going to see the in-depth review that we've got coming for our next episode in a couple of weeks time. But today I'm going to drive the 420i's biggest rival, namely the 420d. So it's the previous bestseller, the 420d, and the 420i has taken over that position. So essentially I'm going to find out today how the 420d fares compared with my 420i, because I think for a lot of people they'll be wondering, well, the 420d has got its merits, but should I be looking at it, what with how diesels are perceived now, or is the 420i really the best one to go for? If you want to find out, then be sure to stay tuned, and why not subscribe to the Parker's Cars channel and turn your notifications on, and also drop a comment in the box below. So this is the 420d that I'll be comparing with my 420i. It's in Dravit Grey, has the jet black alloy wheels and a darker interior that for me looks far less sophisticated than the lighter oyster spec leather in my long-termer. Although maybe I'm a little biased. If you disagree, let us know in the comments. But now let us find out how it compares to my 420i long-termer. When it comes to driving this car and the differences from a 420d to a 420i, well, it's got a little bit more power in the 420d. It's 190 horsepower rather than, I think, 184 in the 20i. And it's got, more importantly than that, a lot more torque, and you can see the exact figures on the screen now. And you wonder how that translates into, you know, actually using it every day. Well, I think the biggest thing with diesels is that the engine refinement typically isn't as good as a petrol, and that is the case in some situations with this car. And what I'm talking about is at very low speeds, when you're moving away from traffic lights, driving on residential roads, you can just hear that rumbling from the diesel engine, which you don't get on the petrol. That said, it's very, very, very refined for a diesel. This is one of the most refined 2-litre diesels I've ever driven, and BMW actually, even over Mercedes and Audi rivals, especially Mercedes, they have done an incredible job at making their diesel engines nice and quiet. But even so, at low speeds, the 420i is still the more refined engine. And we also actually mustn't forget that this car has, of course, got the 48-volt mild hybrid technology, so it does cut the engine at lower speeds and when you're coasting as well, and that does have an impact, but it's little fits and starts. It's not consistently quieter because of it at low speeds. Now, if we take our attention to higher speeds, when you're accelerating onto a motorway, the difference actually isn't that great, because in the petrol, you really start to feel like you're thrashing it when you put your foot down, and it's not particularly comfortable doing that. In the diesel, it does make a noise, it's certainly louder, but the differences I don't think are that great. I mean, put my foot down now, it's really not bad at all. I actually think this is quieter when you're putting your foot down at higher speeds than the petrol. So yeah, depending on what you're using them for, whether it's mainly slow speed driving or high speed driving, the diesel could actually end up being more refined, which probably isn't what you'd expect. As for outright performance, well, surprise, surprise, as you can see from the power figures earlier and the 0 to 62 figures, there really isn't too much to choose between these two cars. I mean, yes, this has got a little bit more in-gear shove, so it doesn't, well, it feels more effortless when you're putting your foot down. It doesn't, again, feel like you're thrashing it. But if we're talking about sprinting from a certain speed, so say 40 to 70 miles an hour, that doesn't feel, in the real world, like there's all that much difference. The only thing that I can really pick out is if you're going up hills, where naturally a diesel's going to excel, and the 420i, it does struggle. But we're really, splitting hairs here. All in all, there isn't a huge amount of difference when it comes to outright performance, you put your foot down, you get a similar result. It just sometimes feels like the petrol engine is working a little bit harder. But you know what? No, that's the gesture control. But you know what? The most interesting difference that I'm finding between these two cars in how they drive is the handling. Because the 420i is a little bit lighter than the 420d, but crucially it's where that weight is. And of course, it's over the nose, it's over the front wheels, because it's the engine, and the diesel engine is heavier than the petrol engine. And that means that this feels noticeably more kind of relaxed at the front end. It's still pointy, it still handles very, very nicely. It's better than an Audi A5, better than a Mercedes C-Class Coupe. But there's just that more on your toes feeling about the 420i than you get in this. This is more like I expected a 4 Series to handle. The 420i really feels sharp, it feels alert, it feels like it's set up to be pointy. Almost like you've set up a track car, for example, by adding lots of camber to the wheels. Whereas this, still got good responses, but just around the straight ahead position, the steering, the turn-in, it just feels a little bit lazier. So if you're after the finest driving dynamics, I think the 420i is actually a bit of a sweet spot in the 4 Series range. I mean, we'll take the M4 out, of course, but it's got the lightest engine, it's the lightest curb weight, and that counts for something. One other thing about this car, and it's related to the handling, is the fact that it's got xDrive all-wheel drive, so BMW's equivalent to Quattro or 4MATIC on a Mercedes-Benz. And if you live in an area where you've often got snow or the weather's usually atrocious, such as the UK, then you might be tempted to have the xDrive. But in all honesty, with a 420d or a 420i, I just don't think it's necessary, because if you're worried about snow, then a decent set of winter tyres will do the job just fine. And this car, and the same with the 420i, it hasn't got enough power or enough torque or just general performance to really start troubling the rear wheels. And actually, I'm just looking at the fuel economy here as well, having picked the car up from BMW and done some mainly slow driving, but also on country roads as well, faster country roads, and it's 37.7, which honestly, I don't think the petrol will be that much less. You know, getting into this car, I was fully expecting to prefer it to the 420i, because I think this is a very relaxed cruiser. It suits long distances, and diesel, of course, traditionally suits long distances. And if you're gonna do mega miles a year, then it could still bring an advantage, especially because the company car tax, there goes the gesture control again, the company car tax on this 420d is less than the 420i. But saying that, the way that there's a difference in the handling, there's the fact that it's quieter at low speeds in the petrol, I'm still leaning towards my 420i as being the engine of choice. And you do wonder, and this is sad, but you do wonder how diesels are going to be seen in a few years' time, and whether we're going to start seeing more or stricter bans in cities, and a petrol car might be the only way forward for you to still have a combustion engine vehicle. So all in all, the 420d absolutely still has its place, but if it was my money and I was buying the car, yeah, the 420i still just about gets my vote, I think. But yeah, let me know, which one would you go for? Why would you go for it? And good question, do you think there's even going to be a 420d next time round? Because quite possibly this could be the last time you can buy a 420d in the UK. We'll see.